Will you be more in tune or standing with a higher frequency or vibration if you are a vegan or vegetarian?
It can work that way, but it again depends upon the person. There are many people who are not vegan or vegetarian who have very high vibrations. It just depends upon what you're exploring and how you explore it and how you align with things. It is possible, and maybe even generally true, for many people on your planet that a lighter diet may be more conducive to a higher frequency of energy. But that isn't always the case. So it really depends on a case-by-case basis.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Yes.
It is wise to follow your own instincts, your own body consciousness, your own highest excitement, and what seems natural for you. But again, do remember that even Jesus ate fish. Yes?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So the idea really is what you do with it, what the relationships you form with the food, what your understanding is of gratitude for having received what the animal has given to you as a gift to support you. It depends on the relationship. Many indigenous tribes have very, very beneficial relationships with the animals that they eat. And thus it doesn't in any way, shape, or form reduce their vibration. You understand?
I do.
So really, there is a general understanding that as you raise your vibration, it may be that you will feel less need or less urge to consume heavier sustenance, so to speak, but just let that occur naturally. And if you feel the urge to simply be vegan or vegetarian, then by all means act on it and see what happens. If, however, at any point in that process you suddenly feel the need to have some form of protein sustenance that is not vegetarian, trust your body consciousness that it knows what it's doing. You may not need very much, but it may be required for a minimal amount of balancing in a certain way that you may not be acquiring through the vegan diet. But again, it will depend upon your individual frequency as to what works best for you.
Understood.
There's no need to force yourself to be more spiritual. That's a contradiction. Does that make sense?
It does.
Oh.
It does.
Pay attention to your emotions. Pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to your behaviors, because your behaviors, your thoughts, and your emotions are always the result of something you believe to be true. So when you engage in any kind of action whatsoever, pay attention to what you're truly feeling. If you're honest with yourself and it is truly being done out of integrity, out of alignment with your true self, then you will know that the feeling you're feeling is not excitement but anxiety. And when you know it's anxiety and you're doing it out of anxiety or to fill the idea of an emptiness within you, then you know you're doing it for a negative reason. Find out what the negative belief is that would generate those feelings and change it and let go of it. And then you will find that you don't have those intentions. You don't have those feelings. And you will be now acting on things only in a positive and an aligned way. It's that simple. You just have to have the willingness to explore yourself honestly so that you can truly admit and own and acknowledge when you do have a negative idea, a negative feeling, and not gloss it over and cover it up and pretend that it's not there. There is nothing to fear about facing those things. You will only discover more of yourself in the exploration. The unknown only contains more of yourself. That's all it can contain. So there is no reason to fear exploring the unknown or exploring a negative belief that you might have as to why you have it. Exploring it and discovering it and having a conscious realization that you have it is what frees you to change it. If you push it down and push it away or ignore it or bury it, then it will only come back stronger next time. And it will be even more difficult to deal with. So it is the path of least resistance as soon as you feel anything out of alignment to deal with it and find out why it's there. And it will always come down to something that you have been taught to believe is true over something else. Decide what's true for you, really true for you, on your definitional level. And when you do that, then you'll be in alignment with yourself and you will experience your life that way. And give everything that happens in your life a positive meaning if you want to experience a positive effect. If you give things negative meaning, the only effect you can get is a negative one. because everything is neutral, and only the meaning you give it determines the outcome and the effect that you experience. And I don't mean the way it looks, I mean the way it is experienced by you. Because the idea and the proof of change is not that the outer world has changed, it's that you respond differently to it even if it looks the same. That's the proof of change. And when you truly have changed, then the outer reflection can change, but not because it has to. Because you wouldn't care whether it changed or not if you were truly generating your own positive state. Because it wouldn't matter what would happen. You would know that no matter what happens, you will only get a positive effect in your life, regardless of what anyone else is getting out of it. And by acting as that positive example to others, you can show them that they can also choose to only experience positive effects in their life, should they so desire to, not that they have to. All that makes sense?
Yes.
All right.
A little say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, all right. We thank you once again for the allowance of this transmission at this time and for the co-creation of this interaction. We will begin this transmission by reminding everyone that the title is the Earth Flat? Now, it is interesting, it is fascinating that a subject such as this that occurred in your society so long ago should come up again at this time and seem to be spreading so prevalently throughout your society for those who are in any way, shape, or form interested in such subjects. It is all over your internet and being discussed with great seriousness by many people. So, there are two parts to this response. Now, we recognize, again, that nothing we say in any way, shape, or form insists that anyone must believe what we have to say. That's not why we share this information with you. But we have our point of view. You can take it or you can leave it. But this is what we will say. First of all, we will begin with a physical discussion of this concept, and then we will move to a metaphysical explanation of why we perceive this conversation seems to be so prevalent in your society at this time. So, first and foremost, we will just be blunt. The Earth is a sphere. Period. Now, the idea is easy to understand if, again, you understand at least some degree of physics or celestial mechanics. You have observed, most of you, the idea of your own astronauts in what you call microgravity or zero-G, and you have seen them playing with liquids. When the liquids are floating freely with no gravity, you see that the liquid forms a sphere. If that liquid were allowed to cool down and solidify, it would remain a sphere. All of the different pressures of the molecular structures, the molecular interactions, and so forth, electric fields, electromagnetic fields, are equally spread out in a sphere in that way. The liquid floating freely, you never see it turn into a disk, ever. You always see it turn into a sphere. So when planetary formation in a solar system begins, and you know that most of the planets at their early stages are molten, liquid, then their natural tendency for a variety of reasons will be to form that sphere, just as the small amounts of liquid do in your astronauts' experiments in zero-G. And when the planets cool again, they will maintain their spherical form, their dimensional volumetric form. Now, an experiment, a very simple experiment, aside from the idea of seeing liquid floating around in a spherical shape in zero-G, a simple experiment that has already been performed on your planet that demonstrates that your planet is not flat, very simply and very obviously. And this is something you can find on your internet. This experiment was conducted in the following way. Some of you may or may not be familiar with this already. There were people that went to the shore of a lake. You know, many of you, that when you stand on the shore of a lake, if the winds are calm, a lake will appear very, very flat. They brought with them a very powerful laser. A laser beam, as again many of you know, will shoot out in an extremely straight line. Therefore, what they did is they set up the laser on the shore. They had a boat in the water, not too far from shore, just perhaps several dozen feet, several dozen yards at most. They then turned the laser on, and on the boat had a specific target that the laser could shine on. So when they turned the laser on, you could see the bright dot of the laser on the target on the side of the boat. You could see right there that the laser being parallel to the lake and being very straight, and the lake appearing to be very flat, the laser and the lake were in parallel. Then they decided to take the boat 3 miles from shore. That's all, just 3 miles from shore. And turn the laser on again. The dot now was 6 feet higher. This means that because the laser hasn't changed, the lake hasn't changed, the only thing that could possibly have changed is that the boat is lower. But it's still on the water. To the people on the boat, to the people on the shore, the lake still looks flat. The only explanation is that the boat is lower, which means it is curving away over the horizon slightly. And thus the laser, not having changed, is now, when it first hitting this, is now, as the boat lowers, hitting a higher point. This is proof the boat is lowering. This is proof the boat is curving down over the horizon. Very simple experiment. The irony is that many people on your planet who are discussing the idea that the Earth is flat are commenting, are proposing that the Earth is actually flat, and that the fact that it seems spherical is an illusion. Just the opposite is true. The Earth is a sphere, and the fact that it seems flat is the illusion. So, it's a little bit backwards. Now, that's the physics of it, the physical side of it, and again, easy to demonstrate. Even though the lake looks flat, you can easily prove it is not. It is following the curve of the Earth because of gravity. And the boat is lowering below the horizon, hence the raising of the laser dot, because the laser didn't move and the lake didn't change. The only thing that changed was the boat going lower over the horizon. Now, the metaphysics of this, the metaphysical reason that this is coming up, is as follows from our perspective. Many people are now exploring the concept of expanding their consciousness. As you expand your consciousness, you begin to realize that time and space and physical reality are illusions. They're projections of consciousness. They're not really solid things. The idea, therefore, is that many people are beginning to sense this in a very strong way. The idea, in a sense, that because physical reality, space and time are not real, that they are projections of consciousness. The idea to most of you of a projection is something that you see projected on a wall that's flat, a flat picture. In a sense, holographically speaking, a hologram is flat. But you can create the illusion of three-dimensionality, of volume in it, by your angle of viewing, by how you illuminate it. So the issue is that while many people are sensing truly that physical reality, in a sense, metaphorically, isn't really solid, is in a sense flat as a projection, unreal, in other words, they're simply applying too physical of an interpretation to this idea, which again is ironic because the reason they're sensing that is an energy one, a spiritual one, and yet they're interpreting the spiritual causation of recognizing physical reality as being quote unquote flat and unreal as if it were literally true physically. That's why that's happening. They simply are mixing up and confusing the idea of an energetic projection of consciousness with something that's actually happening in the physical reality. But by the definition itself of physical reality, it's volumetric as an experience. You experience the idea of height and width and depth. Therefore, the idea of what might be a flat projection energetically, holographically, still plays out, is still interpreted by consciousness in physical terms as a volume. So even though it may energetically seem to be a disk, physically a disk has to turn into a sphere. You saw this also presented in some of your films, especially one that recently depicted the concept of what does a black hole actually look like? Many people think of the idea still on your planet that a black hole is, in a sense, a hole, dimensionless, flat, a disk. But it's not. It is something that expresses itself, at least to some degree, in your physical dimensionality. Therefore, a black hole is also spherical. If it weren't, you would not really be able to perceive it. Because things that are truly two-dimensional are not really easily perceivable in your reality. You can see two-dimensional aspects or parts of things, such as your own shadow on the ground, or like we said, a projection of an image on a wall. But you have to understand that the projection is not just the flat image on the wall. The projection coming from a projector is a cone of light that you only see the bottom of on the wall. So you have to understand that anything that is created holographically in a metaphysical, spiritual, energetic sense, in a consciousness sense, by definition is going to present itself volumetrically and three-dimensionally in your experience of physical reality. Therefore, the Earth, in physical terms, is a sphere, even though in energetic, spiritual, non-physical terms, it can be considered flat because it's not real. It's just a projection. So clarity would be important to bring into the conversation so that people can understand that, in a sense, both sides are correct. It's just that they're correct only in a certain context, not across the line from non-physical to physical. These are two different ways of interpreting the idea of the projection of consciousness. And that clarity can be brought into the conversation to allow everyone to know that they are beginning to perceive reality in an important way, that it is a projection of consciousness, that it isn't really real, that it isn't really around you, that you don't really live in it, that physical reality exists within you. As we have said previously during some of these transmissions, the idea of evolving, the idea of raising your frequency, the idea of ascension, the idea of becoming more sensitive, more aware of what you really are and what physical reality experience really is that you finally get to the point where you realize that you actually are the dimension you previously thought you existed in. So, to put it in other terms, most of you still think on the planet that your spirit is inside your body. No, your body is inside your spirit. It's just that your spiritual focus is narrowed down to the parameters of the physical experience. But when you expand your concept of spirit and consciousness, it's that you expand beyond the parameters of the physical focus. You include the body within the greater consciousness that you are. It's a part of you. It's an experience within you. But it's not that the spirit is actually leaving the body. It's just expanding beyond it to include it as part of the experience, but it also becomes so much more than just the experience of the physical personality. Does that make sense? All right. We thank you for allowing us to explain this at this time. Other discussions can be had on this subject during this or any other transmission. But we invite you now to ask your questions and allow us, if we may, to be of service to you.